Okay. So the purpose for today is one to discuss, really quickly the significance of doing this reading. We've been doing it since 2009, but doing it for the 250th this year, changes that we made to grant funding, who's hosting and where. So hopefully you all will be able to share with that. And then best practices. So folks who have been doing this, we'd love to hear what you plan on doing differently this year and some of that. And then, of course, I will certainly answer any questions or concerns you have to the best of my ability. So with that being said, just a quick reminder about who Mass Humanities is. Since 1974, we've been creating opportunities for the people of Massachusetts to improve their lives and build a more equitable Commonwealth through the humanities. We receive major support from our Massachusetts Cultural Council as well as generous private donors. And we are committed to responsible stewardship of those resources through the guidance of our statewide board of directors, and then us, the creative, efficient operations of the staff. So just a quick norms before we get started, please remain on mute unless you're talking. When it is time to talk, you can either raise your hand with an emoji or you can just take it off mute and speak if someone else isn't speaking. I ask that you all commit to contributing. What that looks like is contributing as a listener, contributing as a speaker if there is something you have to say, contributing as a sharer if there's something you want to share, and then also honoring our time. So we will start on time, we will end on time. If we end earlier, that will be cool too. But also in honoring our time, that also includes making sure that we have space for others to share as well. How do you feel about that? Are we all in agreement with that? If you are, you can do an emoji, you can drop it in the chat. Are we all good with those norms? Seeing some emojis and all right. So let's get into it. So I'm going to leave this up because what I'd like to do is have everybody sort of introduce themselves with a few things. So the first thing they'll do, if you could want to share your name, and I'll leave this up for folks to see your name, your organization that you're representing, city. If you've been hosting previously, the number of years you've been hosting, if this will be your first time, share that as well. And then I'd like you to share something that you think makes your reading, if you've done it in the past, that you think makes yours unique. And so we can start anywhere you'd like. If you want to take your mute button off.
I'll start. Fred Taylor, Worcester branch of the NAACP. This is the third or fourth year that I've done it. Cedric Arnold did it in the past. Um, what are we going to do different? I'm not exactly sure, but I'm definitely here to listen and find out if we have any different ideas. I think our participation has been really good in Worcester. We've been getting a lot of folks to participate, and I think that's really good. But Worcester.
Fred, do you want to give folks just a little background about like how you do the reading or where it takes place generally?
Yep. So we usually do our reading in back of Worcester City Hall. I think it's 455 Main Street in Worcester. We do our reading there. Usually we have we'll get a podium, we'll get music, we'll have different types of people perform. We'll have a couple people sing. Sometimes we'll have a poet, uh, and then um, and then we'll have people line up. We'll get into the reading. We'll form a lineup. We print out different copies and we try and circulate that. We circulate the copies so that folks can come up and sing. I'm not sure if there's anything else, not sing, read the reading. What to the Slave is the 4th of July.
Yeah. I would definitely say one of the things that when I've attended in the past that made yours a little not so unique because I've seen it, but I do love when you all have like the younger folks perform either
Mhm.
like poetry or music. Like that is something that I find enjoyable about your reading in particular.
Yeah, we're actually going to have one of the kid that's going to sing this year. His name is Angelo Gray. He is awesome. He's a really talented kid. He does a lot of singing throughout the city, but he actually had an opportunity this year to be in a national movie. You guys ever hear the movie Running Man? So
They're
he's a
doing a
little
remake,
kid.
yeah.
He's a little kid in Running Man. So
Oh,
he's going to
cool.
be performing at our he's going to be performing at the reading this year. So I'm really excited about that.
That's cool. I saw that Jennifer had her hand up.
Yeah, no,
Hi.
I was just gonna tag on because I'm also from the NAACP Worcester branch. So since we were on Worcester, I figured I would go next. I first got involved with it last year, so I was newer to it. But you both kind of said what I was thinking about in terms of what makes the reading unique. I love that we're going to have Angelo this year to be our singer, but we typically also will have our city's youth poet laureate, and so
Mhm.
that has, I think, been amazing to just kind of start off in that space. And then the other thing, and I don't know, I haven't been to other people's readings, so I don't know what, if what also makes it unique. But what I do love is that I feel like I had anxiety around, like, are people going to want to read?
Mhm.
And people just, the line was so long with people wanting to take part in that and come up and share their, an excerpt from that. And so that I was just like, oh, this is amazing. So I just wanted to share that. So thank you.
No, thank you for sharing. Absolutely. Like the folks who get back in line again sometimes and like, I want to read this. And then you got people who show up and are like, stanza 28 is mine.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share? Name, organization, city, number of years hosting if you have, and then something you think makes it unique. Sure, Zeta.
Hi, thank you. So my name is Zeta Govan. My organization is the Indian Orchard Citizens Council, which is a neighborhood council here in the city of Springfield, Massachusetts. And when we do it this year, it'll be our third reading. And I think that what makes our reading unique is that we do ask for community leaders to do some of the reading. We ask for youth to do readings. We ask for residents to do the readings. Last year we had the chief of police and his wife. Were supposed to come up and do some readings. I forgot if they did or not. Latoya, you would
They
remember
did.
more than
Yeah,
I.
they
Okay,
did.
good.
Hmm.
They did it. We actually make an event out of it and, have like some food trucks and vendors. I always like for us to start singing the Lift Every Voice Black National Anthem. So I'm excited to hopefully continue that trend this year. We're going to be doing it at the Myrtle Street Park this year, right next to our building. And I want to make sure that we, like everyone says, include the youth, include seniors, include community leaders and neighbors in our neighborhood. And of course, Doc Boz comes out every year. I'm hoping.
I do. It's my hometown, so I got to represent,
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I did place in the chat because I saw folks raise their hands. So next is, I want to make, is it Marsha or Marcia?
It's Marcia. You got it right. Thank
All
you.
right.
Most people say Marcia, so I'm glad you said Marcia. Hello.
Hi.
So I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I am actually in what we call the Hyde Park area, which is a borough of Boston. And I did my first Frederick Douglass reading at Juneteenth last year. And I think what was new to us and what will continue is that we launched it with the mayor, Congresswoman Presley, and our governor, Lieutenant Governor reading. That's how we launched it. And then everybody followed during that time. And then we had it as a two-parter, first in public and at the Juneteenth event, then we had a online event. And this year, what we've decided to do was to work with the schools in our community and to have the students launch the reading at Juneteenth, along with the electeds, of course. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great. Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you.
And
Thank you,
so,
by the way, for the grant. Thank you.
absolutely. And so thank you for sharing that. And so one of the things about readings, sometimes they take place in so many settings. And one of the unique settings that we often have readings take place is during a Juneteenth festival. What do you think is maybe some advice that you would share, or maybe a challenge you think there is to hosting a reading during a larger event such as a Juneteenth festival?
It's a great question. I'm not sure how challenged we were because we have a tradition of
All right.
having a speaking program before we do the dancing and the eating and all the other stuff. Because we
Okay.
want to ground it in the meaning of Juneteenth and the intention of our celebration. So we have that moment, and it's within that moment that we start the reading. So we really aren't challenged to find people to be attentive to it. I will say just as an aside, that our concern this year is the presence of some unwanted guests. We might
Absolutely.
might be. And so we're thinking about how we do that so that we can protect the space so people can feel free to have the celebration and to make these proclamations of what Frederick Douglass was asking us to do and thinking about. So yeah.
And thank you for bringing up that very honest and real concern. So two things. One, we do have an event safety guide that is on our website on a list of resources. And what it is, it just kind of helps us to like about placement of things, ways you can set up your team so that there's a constant communication. At larger events, you do want to have something like a walkie-talkie, because sometimes cells go out, or think people have it on silent and they forget. But like having a way that you can communicate, like, hey, I'm at the front, entrance of the park, and this is what's happening. So then that way they know So sometimes that event safety guide offers some of that information. Also, I'll be sharing in the follow-up email, because I'm going to ask you to take a survey today, but also in the follow-up email, I will share a link from Mass Creatives, because they're actually going to be doing some info on how to handle those unwanted guests, or what to do and to prepare, or to how to handle that. And so they've done a lot of more extensive work on that, and I'll share that as a resource. So thank you for bringing that up, for sure. And I'm dropping in the chat who's going first, if you're able to see the chat. I mean, who's going next. So I believe Ashley's next.
Yeah. Hi, Ash Gordon, Castle of Our Skins in Boston, which is a concert and educational series around Black culture, history, and arts. Wanted to just post that we weren't thinking of changing anything. We did this program last year at the Museum of African American History, as we have a partnership with them, and invited our Black college student fellows to be readers and read excerpts that we curated with music. I'm a violist, so a lot of that was string quartet, but wove musical performances quite intentionally inspired by Frederick Douglass with youth voices, and had pre-concert activities with other youth partners, commissioning other works inspired by Frederick Douglass. There's a whole AI exhibit around Frederick Douglass, as well as beautiful things already at the museum to engage with. So that was our first time last year, and we want to, with the museum, make it an annual event. So we're not thinking of changing anything, and want to make sure that consistency is also part of this, as well, as opposed to what makes it different each year.
Absolutely, and building it a new tradition. I think what makes yours unique is obviously the setting, right? The historical setting that it's taking place in. I think that makes it unique in terms of like when we look at, because again, we have 71 readings that took place across the state last year. So when I think about what stands out about your reading, I would definitely say like the setting, the musical piece. I love the Frederick Douglass AI. I've met him several times, and we've had several conversations. But I think that makes it really interactive and great. Yeah, so much more tangible, because it's the speech, it's the music. So absolutely, thank you for sharing so much. And I believe next in the list we have Judith.
Yes, Judy. So Judy Urquhart, I'm with Bristol Community College. So last year we hosted at our New Bedford campus, which obviously was appropriate given the fact that Frederick Douglass lived there for many years. It was our first time hosting. And the thing that made our reading unique was that we really wanted to recognize the population of folks that live in New Bedford. So we had a mix in our reading of different languages. So they included Portuguese Creole. We included Wampanoag language, which is a language that went dormant over 150 years ago, but is now reawakening. And we also had Quiche, which is the indigenous language of the Guatemalan people. So interspersed with the English, we also had these translated pages, and we had our students doing the reading throughout. So it was just like a page for every student. So we had a number of students doing that. Our host was a young man who is getting a PhD in slave narrative. So he helped to really guide the conversation with our community members. we thought we were going to have a really small turnout, and it ended up, and this is again our first time, it ended up probably being about 70 people. So we were really floored by the number of participants. I'm not sure what we're going to do again this year. My colleague is here, Will Duffy. Maybe he's got some ideas. I thought that the translation was really cool, but I'm listening to all the ideas that other folks have, so I might borrow them shamelessly. So thank you.
That's what we're here for, actually.
Have some shameless borrowing, but speaking to what some of these, we want to keep that tradition. So I imagine we're still going to have a multilingual event and still on July 4th.
I think that's amazing, the multilingual event. And like you said, we're going like similar to what Ashley's event is that it's taking place in Douglas's first home here, right, in Massachusetts. So that I think that's wonderful. Whenever we can tie it to place or to something that exists within the city, it's always it just adds to the context and the connection to Douglas. So thank you so much for sharing that. I believe next we have, I'm trying to, put them in order in the chat. Multitasking over here. Nikki is next.
Hi, I'm Nikki from Natick Historical Society, and we've been doing this event in Natick since 2020. So this is our 6th year, and we're really, I'm very excited for this conversation because I'm joined here by Heather Rockwood, who's with the Natick Center Cultural District, and we're working to reimagine the Reading Frederick Douglass event this year and join it a little bit more closely with the work of the cultural district and trying to figure out a new balance of we've been doing it on Juneteenth on Natick Common, trying to figure out a new balance of how to piece together events successfully. I think part of what makes our reading special is actually our keynote speaker, who's been doing it all 6 years, and her name's Brenna Greer. She's a professor of history at Wellesley College, and she does 19th and 20th century Black history. And every year she just blows all of us away with how she contextualizes the speech for the present moment. And they're all on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see what she has to say, like, I just highly encourage it. Every year I'm finding myself wiping tears. So we'll have her back, and Heather's here, and we're just sort of trying to think about how to get people to stay and really talk afterwards, and thinking about doing that more with food and less with music. And now I'm hearing about what you've done, Ashley, which sounds incredible, and I want to be there for that. So anyway, we're just really excited to hear these ideas, and I think Heather and I will have much more to discuss after this meeting. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I have yet to make it to one of yours yet, so I'm gonna have to. There's 70, so like each year I'm like, okay, where can
there's a lot.
Based on like my schedule and the date, especially if they're all happening on like Juneteenth or July 4th. But definitely, and if you have the link and want to share that, feel free to those readings. If you're looking to try to get folks to kind of like stay around for conversation, sometimes it's good to have like maybe a sort of like discussion question that you hand out with that, maybe like a card, or think about this as you're reading, that type of thing, like, or adding something on top of that, or even a front page that says like, we'd love for you to stay after, or think about these 2 questions or this thought. So then that way people kind of have time when they first arrive to kind of think about that and set that tone. And then also even in the beginning, like if there's like a couple of like maybe essential questions, bringing those up in the beginning so that people are cued once more to think about that for after. And also sometimes offering incentives for people to stay, like if there's a raffle, maybe a raffling off items, whether it's like merch or something connected to Frederick Douglass, maybe a copy of his book, or something of his that could possibly work. So that might be a good way to get folks to hang around and discuss a little bit more.
That's a great idea. Thank you. And something maybe Brenna can do in her keynote, which is sort of frame the questions for discussion afterwards. And just a quick note, I will tell you that since you guys started doing the t-shirts every year, people find me and they're like, where can I get one of those t-shirts? Are you selling them? And so anyway, just a thought if Mass Humanities ever wanted to sell the Frederick Douglass t-shirts, they are
Yeah,
so beloved and so popular.
so we're trying to figure that out this year in terms of, so one, obviously, NEH was one of our major funders. We know our federal funding got cut. We knew we were not ending the Frederick Douglass program because that was something that was super important. And so we had to figure out ways in which to cut funding, which is why there has been some changes in the amounts. And typically one of the larger parts of our budget, unfortunately, was trying to ensure that each site 70 got, t-shirts every year, and then the shipping. And so we won't be shipping them, unfortunately, this year, but we're trying to figure out a way to possibly, as a fundraiser, to either have like a website where people can go and order it, or so we're still working that out, if I'm being quite honest. And we'll hopefully have some answers as we move closer to spring, about how we will still do that, because I have every color and I love them too. So for sure. Thank you for sharing. Stephanie? Oh, you're on mute though.
Right. So, sorry.
No
Um,
worries.
so let me just take my hand down too. So I am only been the director for a year and a quarter. So last year was the first time that I had participated in our Frederick Douglass event, though I'm from the Somerville Museum and we've been doing it a number of years, like maybe at least 8 years, maybe more than that. Um, so what we did last year that was different and that we plan to do this year in a different way, and that speaks to the festival issue, is that we did it right ahead of the town's fireworks on the
Mm,
site. So we thought that would be great and really poignant, and people could come early for the fireworks and do the Frederick Douglass reading. And because the fireworks are done a bit early, they're done like June 26th, like not on the 4th. Um,
okay.
so we were doing that, but the problem was that, the band needed so long to set up that they had the stage the whole time. So we were sort of on a street corner of the park,
Ah,
and the good thing was that we got to be heard through the loudspeakers, but the bad thing is that the band was warming up before that, and we really cut off at a certain time because the band needed the speakers again so it was just really kind of difficult logistically. So now we're thinking of doing it in a restaurant or hotel across the street from the park, so we're still connected, but doing it then and really trying to. But the other way I wanted to expand it this year, because of course it's the 250th of the Declaration of Independence, and since we're linking our reading with that, um, I thought that we could enhance it this year a little bit more. And one of the things that we want to do is kind of have juxtapose some quotes from the two documents
mm.
public art display on the Somerville Museum's fence and have people tie their responses on some ribbons and attach them to some telephone wires. Because of course, in Somerville, Frederick Douglass's grandniece, Ruth Valletta Jones, went to Somerville High and became one of the first phone operators and one of the first women to vote in so we thought that we would have like a kind of a switchboard with wires, and then people could tie the ribbon on with an image of her at the switchboard.
Wow, that is so super creative and engaging. Um, that sounds exciting. I
But
was able to attend one.
that would be at a different site, so I don't know if it can be included in the grant. We would try to have this up to kind of promote the Frederick Douglass reading and also as a response after the Frederick Douglass reading, so it would be up for a while. Um, and then we also thought about like how to make an a display at the 4th of July site, because if we're going to be in a separate building beforehand, how do we bring the presence of it there? So I thought of doing like we could also have we could transport that thing, there
Mhm.
on the fence, or create some other
Wow,
kind of like little quilt installation or something like that.
what an amazing
Because that's
idea.
the fence at the park where we're doing the actual reading. So just trying to add on that way.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, exciting.
Is it a $2,000 grant flat
I'm
final?
going to actually go over that momentarily. I
Oh,
just wanted to make sure we heard from everyone else.
Yeah.
I know some people raised their hands, so if you didn't, and if you didn't get an opportunity to speak, because I'm going through my screen while I have my share screen up. So if you haven't, Elizabeth.
Hi, so my name's Elizabeth Hoy. I work at Wheaton College and I teach here and I run the art gallery. And so we held our first event last year in the gallery. It was connected to an exhibition on censorship. And so Wheaton is lucky enough to have a first edition copy of Frederick Douglass's first autobiography. So we had that on display as well as a book that continues to be censored. Um, and I was just we're in Norton, Mass. But I was thrilled by our community turnout. We had about 80 people, and everyone stayed. It's just amazing. And really participated in the discussion. It was mostly the Wheaton community, and that's something I would like to try to change. But of the folks we had, we had students and college administrators and faculty and staff, and it was just a really wonderful experience to have everybody kind of come together. And reading his text was really, I think, like leveling. We sort of were all able to, everybody was sort of stumbling over some of the words, and everybody got through it and had this sort of wonderful shared experience of reading his speech. So I'm really hoping we can continue to make it a tradition. So it's interesting hearing how many other people have done this once and how many people are repeating and sort of hearing what works for everybody. So yeah, I'd be really thrilled to do it again.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, we've had people who, again, from first timers, we've had folks doing it for 11, 12 years. So I love to watch and see it evolve. I know we have some other folks. I see an Alexandra and I see Thor. So
Hi,
does any,
I'm happy to share, and I
okay,
apologize that I'm not on camera right now. I'm traveling in between two spaces.
no worries.
But my name's Alexandria Russell. I'm the executive director of the Boston Women's Heritage Trail. And we're an organization who's been around since 1989, and we have trails celebrating women's history all over the city. And last year, for the first time, we received the Reading Frederick Douglass Together grant and had an event at the Boston Women's Memorial on Commonwealth. We did this around July 4th to really amplify women's perspective to this. And so we kind of had an outdoor setup outside where people either could come to the event because they knew it was happening, or as they were walking by, they could stop by. And it was really great. We had a discussion afterwards. And, we all understand how poignant this speech is, and Frederick Douglass's words really resonate with communities today. And so it was nice to have that conversation through the perspective of women and what women are facing today. I love hearing that people have music and poetry and other things that are tied to the event. So I think we're going to try to do it near the July 4th date again, but it would be wonderful to add some different layers to the event itself beyond the speech.
Absolutely. We love to see that. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's it. It is Thor, or maybe he doesn't want to participate. I'll keep going. So I'm going to get into some questions. If I don't cover something, please ask, because I didn't want to be redundant. We do have on our website webinars for like specifics. Like we have a pre-recorded like few minute webinar about like your media plan. We have one on the application process, and we have one on best practices. But I wanted to, bring us together and want to discuss and then really clear up and answer some questions. So here are the dates for this year. Typically we have our deadlines end later. In the past, we've had them end as late as June. We've decided to end early with our deadlines, mostly because it helps us. When you all like send us events, we are doing a lot of like press around that, but also reaching out to our legislators, and so that we can continue to fund it. And so it's when we have a full list of how many readings are taking place, it's the earlier the better. Then that way we can work out amongst our staff as well who is going to attend. So if I can't attend, maybe one of my colleagues can attend as well as one of my board members. And then also it helps us to help you promote your event. So if we know that you're hosting, we can share your flyer, we can share your event or links to whatever it is that you need us to share. So that's one reason why we decided to end it. So the last application deadline is April 17th. You can apply anytime. So if you are planning on hosting a Juneteenth event, a July 4th event, last year we had events go as late as November because people did things for other emancipation days and other events. So as long as the reading takes place in 2026, you can apply anytime. So you can apply for the next deadline on February 20th, even if your event is not until October. So you have plenty of time for that. So that's one as far as like the grant dates and announcements. So our funding amounts have changed for people who didn't know. If you've been doing it for a long time, when I first came on, it was $1,200. Because of inflation, because people were doing more, we upped it to $2,000. But because our federal funding got cut, we also had to cut the program by 30%. And so that was a tough conundrum for us. Like, do we reject readings? Because I'll be honest, we rarely reject applications. If there's an issue for this program, for other things, it's much more competitive. For this program, we offer a lot of autonomy. I'm here as a support with programming. And so there's a lot more flexibility. This year, we have lowered that amount. So if you are hosting just a reading alone, meaning somebody, and you may have a scholar, somebody may come and set context and background, but that's still considered a reading. So if you're having a reading and that's it, and then the grant amount is $1,000. We are working on trying to find ways to support your events through other funding as well. But as far as specifically the grant, it's $1,000. It's up to $1,800 if it includes a formatted discussion, which I'll go over briefly. And as you can see, again, a discussion goes beyond opening, closing remarks, or talking about the fact that Douglas spoke at your town, or, how it connects to the 250th. We're hoping that you do connect Frederick Douglass to the 250th this year, right? Because we're talking about people are celebrating and in some spaces glorifying, the American Revolution without talking about the people who were not included, or without talking about like the sacrifices that others people made and how it impacted people of color and Black folks. So that's one thing is that. So we consider it a discussion if it's deeper engagement through facilitated question and response. And so that you can find in our trauma informed guide on our resource page, which I'll drop in the link towards the end. But if you check that out, it gives you multiple ways to ask questions. So there's questions, you can pick 2, you can pick 3, you can go through multiple, you can break into groups, you can give people questions in advance, you can have people write their answers if you're in an enclosed space and it's not outdoors on large Post-its. So there's so many ways. What it does is it just offers you a different opportunity. So check it out, just check it out and see what is in your comfort zone. Some of us have been facilitators and this is what we do. And some of us, where we may not be as comfortable with facilitating, but that is going to give you a lot of information around there. There's also stuff on there around trauma-informed practices and how we make sure that that people feel secure in sharing and being there. And so, again, these can take place anytime. So that's the new funding amount. And again, I'll take questions momentarily. So examples of discussions, again, it could be facilitated. We would include a discussion too if you did something like a walking tour or historic tour. Some of you are already in places where that's taking place, like the museum, like some of these other places, like in New Bedford, I know we have, the Nathan and Polly Johnson house, which, is the house that housed him. So if that was a part of it, that would be considered that as well. We do have an interactive map online that you can look at all the places that Douglas spoke. It could include something as a book club. They're not on the call today, but UMass Amherst they do a reading every year, but then they also did a book club afterwards where part of the funding, they bought copies of the book and they did a book club and a follow-up with that. And then hands-on activities like the one I just heard about, possibly, tying the wire and things like that. So anything like that. We've seen people do art projects or collaborative art projects. We've seen people just tie it to their community specifically or to a different event. Fred, you have your hand raised. You have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. The first one is, Um, I'm sure there's different times for different readings, but I heard folks speak about like some discussion. I heard someone speak about a keynote speaker and then also the reading. So we usually go through the total reading. We break it up and have everyone read. So it usually takes anywhere from an hour and a half, hour, 15 minutes to close to 2 hours to do that. I'm trying to find out how much time does the average person do for a reading? That's one question. And then this is more for you, Toya. So like usually we have, like I mentioned, the person who's gonna sing, we usually give a stipend to the people who perform in the reading. So would that all be considered the same thing as a reading, or no, that wouldn't be considered the
No,
same
it would
thing?
be considered, unfortunately, it would be just considered, and that's what makes it hard, right? Like, because we're slashing, unfortunately, right? Like, we're
Right.
slashing that,
Mhm.
and really, yeah. So having like like if you are having performers, and I know you're used to paying honorarium, that would have to change either the amount, or you'd have to either like get funding from something else in order for that to be covered.
All right, thank you. And then the other
Yes,
one
and
was
it's
time.
yeah, and as far as like the event length, so typically we like to ask folks to really read the medium version of the speech. Some folks will read the short version, the medium version of the speech, and that's the one that we have the Spanish and Creole translations for. That one is typically about 40 minutes. So a lot of events that are just doing the reading are going to last just an hour. So a lot of the ones who are doing that, like somebody sets the context or and somebody closes, but typically with the opening, the closing, and then the actual reading, the event usually takes place about an hour. If you're having a discussion or if it's a part of another event, I've seen events go as far as 3 hours as well. I know one year in Springfield, they broke the event up where they read one portion of the speech and someone set the tone like this part we're gonna Douglas is talking about this. They read it, they heard reflections from people, and then they took a break, and then they went and did the middle section, and then they came back. So you definitely have free range around how long you do it. I know, like at City Hall, it's usually about an hour or so, maybe a little longer because people stay and just like catch up, and it's an annual thing. Same thing with the one that we do on the Boston Common. It's usually an hour. We do it on people's lunch break, and it's great because people can go in and out. So they definitely vary. And Nikki has a question.
Not a question. I just wanted to clarify, Fred, that when we have Brenna do the keynote, her keynote's only about 10 minutes. So I used the word keynote, but it's really a framing of the reading. And then we do the medium length reading that Latoya mentioned. And the whole event usually takes about an hour and a
Mhm. Thank you for sharing. You can also do a guest panel discussion. So sometimes people will do a reading, and because other people don't want to engage in conversation, they may have maybe some scholars or community organizers or historians that might provide a brief panel discussion as well. Again, reading narratives or other parts of Douglas's speeches or other pieces or excerpts as well. And then those hands-on activities that require discussion to take place. So all of those would be considered a discussion, and those would be eligible for the 1800. But if your tradition is to do the set the context, read the speech, close out the speech, that would still necessarily wouldn't be considered discussion. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but this is what we got to do with our funding for now, right? Trying times. Um,
Big, beautiful bill.
I'm gonna, so that I can stop sharing, I'm gonna put this up just for a moment so that we can really like follow up and I can answer questions. If you need to reach me, definitely reach me. Email is mostly best because even though you can reach me and leave me a voice message, I do site visits. I am out doing other workshops. And so typically it's just like my phone is like on silent often if I am in a webinar or I'm watching an event. And so usually it's easier for me to just respond to emails, but feel free to reach out. I do have a Calendly as well if you'd like support around that. So my background is in education and in community group work. And so I love sharing ideas with you around how do we make it more engaging? How do we solve this problem? It's my favorite part of doing this reading besides actually attending them. So I'm available for brainstorming sessions or ideas, you can either book it on Calendly, or you can just shoot me an email and I will make myself available to you for that type of thing. And then I'm going to just share just some quick photos. These are from the 2025 readings that took place throughout the state. Like I said, we had 71 readings take place, and so they look so different. We have people who memorize the speech and enact it. We have people who practice their lines and they're assigned something. We have people who do it more organically, like Worcester and like the Boston Common, where people just get in line. So there's so many different ways in which you can do it. Multiple ages. Sometimes they focus on a particular group of people. We've had a group of veterans do it. We've had lots of young people do it. So there's so many ways in which you can focus on the people or the place or the historical connection that Frederick Douglass has to your community. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'll take questions, comments, and then if anybody has anything that they want to share about their event. I will say one of the biggest things as somebody who's been to most site visits is really make sure your sound is ready. I think that's probably the biggest one. Sometimes like doing a sound check is important. Sometimes and we've had it even for our own words, like, like one time our generator was louder than the speaker. Like that was an issue. And so just making sure that your sound equipment is working. So doing a sound check, making sure if it's something that's plugged in or chargeable, that it's charged. Oftentimes having a backup speaker or two microphones is good because that helps with the flow of things. I know some folks do one microphone and people just go up, but sometimes having two allows you to alternate and break up the space. So that's something that I found helpful with readings, is just really making sure sound is good. I know that sometimes people like me have teacher voices and are like, oh, I don't need to be heard, but we have to make sure that we also make the event accessible for everyone. So sound is, I think, a really big thing. Like test it out, have someone, if you're on a stage or a platform, make sure it's charged, speak on it, like test it out the day before or earlier, have somebody stand at a distance so that they can make sure they can hear it. And then the other thing is if you're doing a summer reading, we don't know what our summers look like. Some summers here are rainy. So if it's outside, where is your rain date? Or where is your alternate location that's potentially close by for it? Also thinking about if somebody's on the stage, right, and people are looking up at them, is the angle to where they're going to be blocked by the sun and they can't see? Or is the person on stage going to be so blocked by the sun that they can't see? So if you're having a larger event that's lasting longer, think about tents. Think about water in the budget, whether it be, somebody donating it. Sometimes you can get people to donate, or other businesses, if you don't want to use that out of the budget, to donate water for that. Or just thinking about if there are folks who might be more susceptible to heat, that people are paying attention to that type of thing, right? Like, do they have somewhere to sit? Is there a space for shade? Is there somebody who's paying attention to that? Because again, it's New England. So Nikki, you had a question?
I just wanted to share that last year, for the first time in partnership with the Natick Center Cultural District, we had ASL interpreters interpreting the speech as people read. And it was very, very moving, even for folks who'd come every year and have seen this done numerous times, to see it interpreted through American Sign Language is a really different experience. So this is not a year where anybody has excess funds, but if that's something that any community was considering, I guess I would say that I know Heather and I are committed to making that happen again this year, because it was such an incredible addition to the experience of hearing this speech read aloud. To see it also interpreted with sign language aloud was very, very moving. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you for sharing that. When I read that in the report, I was like, that is amazing. And so, yeah, the question of money is going to be something different because we have less funding. My suggestion would be to see if you could get people to sponsor through other ways, right? Like visually, getting people to make like business or other local organizations to partner with you in donating certain items for that or donating services for that. A big question when you are planning is to ask who might be excluded by the practice that we're doing. Right. So if it's when you think about location, who might be excluded? It's great when we have places that are accessible by public transportation, for instance, right? But just think about who might not, who might be excluded by the place, by our process for doing the reading, by just the entire thing. And so that's a great way to help you kind of think about your planning process. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have any questions or things that they want to share that they feel are great practices that would be helpful? Because some of you have been doing it, and so you are, in fact, the experts in this. Zeta?
Thank you, Doc Boz. So this year, what we're planning on doing is having the reading at the park on one day, and then 2 weeks later, invite people to come out and have a conversation. And we're asking for the grant money, but of course, the Indian Orchard Citizens Council is getting other grants, and they have a grant for a youth council, which is going to be participating in that. So we're having kind of like two separate events, but of course, thanks to Mass Humanities, the reading is going to be the focus of the grant money that we're getting from you guys. So we're excited to do something different this year, and especially because of the 250-year anniversary of this country, I guess, getting formed. There's no easy way to say that without, not thinking about the history that this country went through to get here. And here we are in 2026, still kind of like fighting the same fight that Frederick Douglass was fighting. So thank you again.
And thank you for sharing that. So two things from what you had to share. One, the idea of it doesn't have to all take place on one day. Sometimes that can be hard in terms of continuity. And so your engagement with that just has to be strong, right? Like you're encouraging people, if you have email, if they're coming for this event, do I have their contact information so we can follow them up? If I'm doing a raffle, maybe that day, right? We're doing the raffle, but we're announcing it at the discussion next week, right? So really trying to think of ways to keep that engagement. And a lot of times when we do these readings, we do often talk about the fact that we are still contending with some of the same issues. I also encourage you to add to that discussion of, wow, we're still dealing with the same thing, but to add to where is our power within that, right? How can we collectively either organize, or what are these small things that we can do to make a difference? And so sometimes adding a call to action, because a lot of times people don't know what to do, right? They're worried, they're concerned, they're scared, they have thoughts, they don't know what to do. And so if you have a call to action for people that they can either engage in when they show up, maybe there's a table set up, maybe there's something, if there's a call to action in the beginning and the end, sometimes that makes people to feel empowered, and that there's this one like small thing that I can do that might make a difference because there's 20 of us here, or 40, or some places 70 or 200 of us here, because our reading audiences go anywhere from small groups of 20 to 250. And so is there a call to action that could be added in there that is a low risk, small ask but big effect that you could ask? So that's something to consider adding to your reading as well. Thanks for sharing. Good stuff. I'll pause and just like wait if there's any more questions, comments, or things that people feel. I really encourage you. I know there's a lot of stuff, and I'll actually put that on there. We have so much resources, which also can probably feel overwhelming. But I think it's important to to check them out. What we did is we tried to take our page and make the page a little bit more conducive, because we realized we had so much stuff. So when you go to the Reading Frederick Douglass page and you go to the resources, everything is there. I'm going to actually share my screen really quickly just for folks who haven't been to the website lately. So when you go onto the website, what you'll see is obviously you can download the speech there, and apply and all that, but also right? It takes you to the speech. So right there's a QR code. So people can QR code the speech as well. If you go down here, there's a media kit. So that's going to tell you, that's going to frame your media release. It's going to frame for you. It already has wording for folks who are not really big social media fans, or if you're getting somebody else to do it, it has that framed for you with the hashtags. There's the planning thing. We have the flyer. You don't have to use our flyer, but if you want it to be easier, you can use ours and fill in the blank. There are some short films. So if you are having an event and you're like, hey, I don't know how to fill the time, or I want to do something else, we have a couple of films that we've done of readings that talk about it. Most of them are like 5 minutes. So there's things like that. There's also a way to notify your legislators. I think that's important for all of us collectively to invite legislators so they can see not only the funding that Mass Humanities is providing, but the amazing work that you're doing with the funding. And then there are links to all of our webinars. So we did a live one, but there are some pre-recorded webinars. There's the safety guidelines that I talked about earlier about like, how do we make sure it's physically safe? And then we have the trauma informed guide where we talk about how do we make people feel more emotionally and psychologically safe. And then there's some facts, some FAQs, there's some images of Douglas. There is some of our research. So the interactive map is on here. If you click on that, it'll show you all the places that Douglas spoke in a particular time period. And so much. So be sure to check out that page if you haven't had an opportunity. But again, even if you have checked it out and you have questions, I'm more than happy to, like I said, answer questions to the best of my ability, but also to have conversations about planning or support around that. And I'll pause again because we are getting close to end time, but I do want to make sure if there are any last minute questions that folks are, get those questions answered, or if there's any last final thoughts about this. So for folks, how many folks, if you just real quickly want to just use, if you can use the emoji or just raise your real hand if you're able to kind of say that you've already like received the grant and you're rocking and rolling. If you already got the grant, okay. And folks who have already applied and are waiting to hear back. Okay.
Got a question.
Yes.
The grant. So is there a time period that you have to use the grant? So like we're gonna do it around the 4th of July. Should we wait till later to apply for the grant? Or
No,
should we do it
apply
now?
as soon, you can apply anytime. You can apply for
Okay.
this deadline on the 20th, anytime. And once you get the funding, you have until the end of 2026 to host. So most of our readings do take place July 4th, Juneteenth. But again, there's a reading that just took place Saturday. And UMass is doing a reading, a lunchtime reading on the 27th. Then we have another organization doing one on the 28th. So some folks have done it for Black History Month. Sometimes people will do it for other like emancipation days that connect to their own culture. So there's so many different ways to do it, but you can apply anytime, whichever works best for you, right? Like obviously the sooner you apply, the faster you'll get the funds in hand, but overall you can apply anytime. The last deadline is in April. And they're rolling, as I said, every month they're rolling. So we did do a grant line. Right now we have 13 readings that are out for approval right now. So yeah, we're hoping that we still have 70 even with the cut funding. And I'll just say one last thing. If you get a flyer, like please share it with me. That way I can share it with our comms person. And again, we want to help you promote your event as well. So we'll do our best to make sure that we share it with our board, with our staff, and via social media or what have you. So if you get that flyer, definitely share it with us. And with that being said, I'll pause again. And then if not, we will close out the day. All right, everybody have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week as well.
Thank you. You as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All righty.
Very
Bye-bye.
much.